nerderotic.com.
Welcome back to the Nerderotic channel. My name is Gary Beekler, and I come to you from nerderotic.com. And the only thing worse than watching Star Trek Discovery Season 1 is watching how it was made. I have just finished watching the special features for the Blu-ray for the third time, and I am in pain right now. But thankfully, I have you to share it with. Misery loves company, right? Well, if you're a fan of this show, this might not be the video for you. I'm going to not really dissect the 2 hours of special features because most of them were promos, a lot of behind the scenes with costuming, but there was some insight concerning canon and what they have done to canon, which is basically give it lip service. That's all we got. But the first thing from the show producer, Heather Kayden, who really hasn't gotten a lot of criticism, probably because Alex Kurtzman has been the lightning rod, and that is deserved, believe me. But she broke out the old subverting our expectations. Now, her quote was related to the Klingons, and we did get a lot of insight of why and how the Klingons turned out the way they did, which is ridiculous. But her quote was, "Changing your expectations about our assumptions." Okay. So yes, there's a lot of double Hollywood speak in this, and it's pretty rich. What I'm going to share with you now are some of my favorite quotes from the multiple special features. The standout ones were the casting special feature, the special on women in Star Trek, or the powerful women of Star Trek Discovery, and of course, a review of the first season. I will say that they mostly focused on the first 2 episodes, and the biggest takeaway from all of this is what they didn't talk about. They really didn't talk about anything much beyond the first 2 episodes. As far as casting is concerned, they only showed the casting or talked about the casting of Michelle Yeoh, Doug Jones, and of course, Sonequa Martin Green. Sonequa Martin Green had some of my favorite quotes in this, and they're really not very self-aware and a little funny, so I hope you enjoy this as much as I didn't. Of course, we are going to start out with the 2 showrunners who were fired midway through Season 2, Erin Harberts and Gretchen Berg, fired for budget woes and complaints of staff mistreatment. And you're going to see a couple people from the staff that they might have mistreated. And, well, you can draw your own conclusions about that, and I will get to that later. But yes, again, one of the omissions is they didn't talk to any of the new writers. They didn't talk to many of the writers from the writing room. They talked to the 2 people who were fired. And one of my favorite quotes to begin with is they were talking about the casting of Sonequa Martin Green and admitting they didn't even listen to her read all the way through. They listened to the beginning and they just knew they had the right Michael Burnham. Maybe you should have listened to the read. Back to Heather Kayden, who says they have always portrayed the Klingons as the bad guy, period. Always. Really? Then we hear from the primary architect of this crap, Alex Kurtzman. If you reinvent them too much, people will feel you're disrespecting canon, the aesthetic of Star Trek. Yes, that's exactly how we feel. I don't really know how you got from here to here. Well, it says it right there, with developing and potentially reinventing who the Klingons are. Now, reinventing is a word I heard 3 or 4 times throughout these special features, almost repeated as much as strong female. But I digress. There is a costume designer who gives us further insight on their approach towards canon and the look of the Klingons. Once we saw what she was doing, we were like, oh, we can go that far? He was referring to Gersha Phillips, the costume designer from Star Trek Discovery. And yes, I took these pictures directly from my TV. Nothing but the best for you guys here at the Nerderotic channel. At least she has worked on science fiction before, unlike most of the writers of this show, but did not show any reverence for Star Trek, as did a lot of people. A lot of people interviewed here just talked about it was a lot of pressure, but there wasn't a lot of, I love Star Trek. I would say maybe half the people interviewed didn't even mention it. They talked about their costumes, what they were doing, but no love of the show, or I've been watching it since then. Kurtzman, even when they sat Kurtzman down, he said he had watched it when he went over to a friend's house, which I thought was weird. His dad would have it on the TV and I'd watch the reruns. He'd never say I'd sit at home on the weekends and watch episodes of Star Trek. Now, I might sound a little nitpicky here against Alex Kurtzman, but he is supposed to be the Kevin Feige of Star Trek. Kevin Feige reads comic books, has read comic books all his life, has been a fan of Marvel all his life. Not, oh, I went over to my friend's house and I read a couple of his comic books and now I'm running the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Kurtzman's quote here is he wants to humanize the Klingons. Well, he wants to make them relatable, but he knows nothing about them. And what he's actually doing is lying to you, because what they're doing is reinventing them and rebooting them. And that's all this is. The final quote on the Klingons is my favorite, from Neville Page of Alchemy Studios. You can design something with the intent of creating a specific look that has evolved from where the design's been. Or you can have the cart lead the horse and come up with a cool design. Then you have to use all of the lore, all of the history, and backwards engineer it so it's connected. Huh? You're going to have the cart come before the horse and backward engineer the cart or the horse? Or both? I don't understand. Hollywood speak, folks. It's how these people get jobs. I mean, hey, they're talented too, but in Hollywood, you have to be equal parts talented and bullshitter. And Neville Page wins. And the final thing on the Klingons, folks, is thank you for giving the Klingons 2 dicks. Because we needed to know that. I have no idea how that works or what. I mean, like, does that mean there's 2 vages? Or does a penis kind of work? Does the semen kind of work like 2-part epoxy? Where you got to kind of mix it in before you make the little Klingon, or it gets to the Klingon eggs, or is there 2 eggs? Like what was asked at the Star Trek convention earlier this year. Is there 2 buttholes? There might be, because I couldn't give 2 shits about this show. Just a couple of quotes from my favorite segment of the Star Trek Discovery Blu-ray, the strong, powerful, strong female women, powerful character women of Star Trek segment that they did from Mary Sheffo, who plays Norel, where she said, "It's great to have so much nuance within the female characters that there's not one way to be a strong female character." Then we have Sonequa Mark Green talking about Star Trek being led by a black female and how brave it is and wonderful it is. And it's great. But the lack of self-awareness from the following quote, where she says, being led by a black female right now in our current political climate, in our current socio-economic climate. I just really... mad respect. You know you're referring to yourself, Sonequa, right? You are a rich actress in Hollywood getting to pretend on a sci-fi show that costs $10 million an episode. Socioeconomic climate, again? What was that about? I'm sorry. And for our final quote this segment, because I really can't take any more, and I'm not sure you can either, from Kristen Bear. You may know that name as being the Star Trek canon guru for all the shows. She drew that wonderful map for Canon Camp, that Kristen Bear. She says, in referring to the episode where they broke the cloaking technology and canon to pieces, I'm partial to episode 109, which is, of course, season 1, episode 9, because I was very critical in the development of that story. The stakes of that one and the idea that this is the way we managed to first figure out how to break cloaking technology feels like a pretty cool thing to do. Now, remember that quote earlier about, oh, we're going to extrapolate this and back engineer that and cart before the horse, but then just do something cool. That is said a lot in the special features where, well, we basically took a look at canon, but we wanted to do something cool. Now, cool is subjective, especially to people who aren't into Star Trek. The last few things I want to point out was it was pretty entertaining seeing the amount of people who no longer are affiliated with the show being interviewed, including Erin Harberts, Kristen Berg, Akiva Goldsman, and Todd Chernowski. The only person they were missing was Brian Fuller. We had 2 participants in this show refer to Trek fans as Trekkies. And we got 2 final quotes here that I thought were the best to go out on that explain a lot. Wow, this could be something really cool. Heard that before? I don't know what the Trekkies will say about us making an Orion embassy on Kronos, but I think it's an interesting departure from canon a little bit. But you know, canon comes from Star Trek. Yes, the canon does come from Star Trek. And that is what we're trying to fight. The more you guys go on, the more damage you're doing. So please put yourself in the Kelvin timeline or create a new one, or you're going to destroy this IP that you paid so much money for. Actually, I think the damage has been done. I don't know if there's coming back from this. You're not quite as bad off as Star Wars is, but you're getting there. This is the last one, I promise, and it's just Kristen Bear telling a story where it's her and 3 other women in the writing room in between episode 2 and 3, and that she thinks it is the first time in history 4 women were deciding the future for Star Trek. And were these also the 4 women who got Erin Harberts and Gretchen Berg fired for alleged abuse? But yeah, she was noticing it was probably a moment in history, and she was very aware of it. I hope she is also aware that that's great, and all for it. Hope it happens again in the future, but I hope it happens with the success, because you are also the first 4 women in history of Star Trek to screw up a show this bad. And for our final quote, we have, "Our plan is to go full tilt boogie with Star Trek." Again, this is the Kevin Feige of Star Trek. How this man got the job, I have no idea, other than, he must have gone to the J.J. Abrams school of bullshitting. It's amazing what Bad Robot, the tentacles of Bad Robot, have gotten everywhere and destroyed so many franchises, and this one is almost done. I can't wait for it to be over. We have a whole season to go. I don't know how we're going to make it. I mean, I'm surviving Doctor Who. And now we got this. Thank God we got some good TV coming out, Counterparts coming out. The Expanse is going to come back. The Orville's coming back in a little bit. We always have the Orville. But man, this show is so bad. Continue to protest, folks, because the only way we could stop this is by not buying it and being vocal about it. All right? Okay. We made it. We got through it. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Please go to nerdrotic.com. We usually cover TV shows live, including the next short trek, which I believe is on December 6th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. We will be on about 5 or 10 minutes after it airs, and we can have a live discussion about it. And we do that with all the shows. Our next one is Doctor Who. We're also doing Titans. And of course, we got the Orville coming up, and Night Flyers, and Counterpart. We cover a lot of good TV here. So we really appreciate all the new subscribers. God, so many. It's been great. Everybody, have a great day, and whether you like us or hate us, like this show or hate this show, I hope you have a great day, and may the small folks sing songs of your greatness.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.